Get app. Cancel send. Crossing realities. PAUSE, looking directly into the camera. What if the person you were meant to be was trapped inside the person you are right now? And what if it took a public explosion, a moment of total humiliation seen by millions, to finally set that true self free? Pause. This is not someone else's story. This is a story about you. It's about the version of you that you've been quietly, secretly, building in the hidden rooms of your mind. The one with the unshakable confidence. The one who has already achieved the things that currently feel like distant dreams. The one who speaks with conviction and lives without apology. But right now, that version of you might feel buried. Buried under doubt, under past failures, under the weight of other people's expectations. It feels separate, a reality you can't quite cross into. I want to tell you a story. A story about a man named Alex. Now, Alex isn't a celebrity. He wasn't a famous CEO or a superstar athlete. He was an expert, a brilliant geologist who had dedicated his life to understanding a new, potentially revolutionary clean energy source. He was quiet, reserved, the kind of man who preferred the certainty of data to the unpredictability of the spotlight. But his work was gaining attention. Important attention. And one day, the call came. The biggest call you can get. 60 Minutes, wanted an interview. Pause. For most, this is the pinnacle. A sign you've made it. For Alex, it was a waking nightmare. The thought of sitting under those hot lights, with a seasoned, notoriously sharp interviewer like Michael Vance, made his palms sweat. He wasn't a performer, he was a scientist, but his team convinced him. This is for the technology, they said. This could change everything. You have to be the face of it. So, he said yes. And for the next 3 weeks, he didn't sleep. He prepared obsessively. He had binders full of data. He anticipated every possible question. He rehearsed his answers in front of a mirror until his words felt hollow and strange. He was building a fortress of prepared statements, hoping it would be strong enough to protect him. The day of the interview arrived. The studio was both incredibly hot and chillingly cold. The lights were blinding, and across from him sat Michael Vance, a man whose smile was warm, but whose eyes were like scalpels, already looking for the seams. The interview began smoothly. Softball questions. The setup. Alex delivered his lines perfectly. He talked about the science, the potential to revolutionize energy grids. He was hitting his marks. The fortress was holding. And then, the tone shifted. You could feel it in the air, a change in pressure before a storm. Vance leaned forward, his smile gone. Dr. Alex, he began, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. This is all very impressive. But our sources tell a different story. They say your initial data was flawed. That your team covered up early, catastrophic failures. That this so-called revolution is, at best, a pipe dream built on a foundation of very pretty, very expensive lies. Pause. The world stopped. The air was sucked out of the room. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. This wasn't a question he had prepared for. This was an accusation. A character assassination, live on national television. The binders of data in his mind turned to ash. The fortress of prepared statements crumbled into dust. He stammered, that's not accurate. Vance pounced. Which part isn't accurate, doctor? The flawed data or the cover-up? He slid a document across the table. This is a leaked internal memo from your own company, dated just last year. It speaks of anomalies and unrecoverable test failures. Can you explain this? Alex looked down at the paper. The words swam in front of his eyes. It was real. Taken out of context, twisted, but it was real. The cameras zoomed in. He could feel the lenses like physical pressure, the eyes of 10 million people watching him unravel. This was it. The moment of explosion. He didn't get angry. He didn't shout. He did something far worse, in the world of television. He broke. His shoulders slumped. He looked down at his hands. And for what felt like an eternity, but was only about 5 seconds of dead air, which, in television, is a lifetime, he was silent. Completely, utterly silent. A single, traitorous tear escaped and traced a path down his cheek. It was the image of defeat, of being caught, of guilt. Vance, sensing the kill, softened his voice, a predator offering false comfort. It's a lot of pressure, isn't it, Alex? To carry a lie this big. And then, something snapped. It wasn't a snap of anger. It was a snap of clarity. In that abyss of humiliation, as he sat naked before the world, a thought, clear and sharp, cut through the panic. This is not me. This stammering, broken, defeated man on television, that was not who he was. That was the persona he had created out of fear. The one who had over-prepared out of insecurity. The one who was trying to be what he thought a TV expert should be. His true self, the geologist who knew his work was sound, who had lived the data, who had seen the potential with his own eyes, that man was still in there. And he was screaming to get out. Alex lifted his head. He looked directly into the camera, ignoring Vance completely. His eyes were red-rimmed, but they were now focused. Steady. He took a deep, shuddering breath. And he began to speak. His voice was low, raw, but it had a new core of steel. Michael, he said, you're right, it is a lot of pressure. The pressure of knowing that something you helped create could genuinely help people. The pressure of knowing that the biggest obstacle to clean energy isn't science, but this. He gestured between the two of them, and by extension, to the entire studio, the network, the media circus. Theater. He picked up the leaked memo. This document is real. The anomalies it refers to were the reason we almost shut down. They were the reason I didn't see my family for 6 months. They were the fire that forged this technology. We didn't hide them, we solved them. That's what scientists do. We don't find perfect answers on the first try. We find problems, and we spend our lives solving them. He turned his gaze back to Vance, and for the first time, it was Alex who held the power. You presented a partial truth as the whole story. You took our greatest struggle and tried to paint it as our greatest sin. And for a moment, you made me believe it. You made me feel like a fraud. Because that's what this environment does. It makes honest people feel like they're lying, and it makes complex truths feel like simple lies. He leaned forward, his intensity filling the screen. But I am not a fraud. This technology is not a lie. It is difficult. It was born from failure. It is messy and complicated and real. Just like progress. Just like life. And if you, or anyone watching, expects a perfect, seamless story from the messy, beautiful, and often painful work of building something new, then you will never recognize a real revolution when you see one. Pause. The studio was silent. Vance was speechless. He had expected a denial, an argument, a breakdown. He had not expected a raw, unfiltered reclamation of truth. The interview ended shortly after. It became one of the most talked about segments in the show's history. The headlines the next day were brutal. Expert melts down on 60 Minutes. Geologist cracks under pressure. But a strange thing happened. Emails started flooding Alex's university account. Not hate mail. Letters from other scientists, from engineers, from entrepreneurs. They said the same thing. Thank you. Thank you for saying what we all feel. Thank you for showing the human behind the data. Thank you for reminding the world that real innovation is born in the messy, difficult, untelegenic space of perseverance. Investors who had been scared off by the initial headlines actually called him. They said his raw honesty in the face of attack was the most compelling pitch they had ever seen. It proved he wasn't a salesman, he was a believer. The explosion didn't destroy Alex. It forged him. PAUSE, shifting tone to be more direct and personal. Now, let's leave Alex's story for a moment. Let's talk about your explosion. Because you have one. Maybe it hasn't happened on national television, but it has happened in the studio of your own life. It was that presentation at work where you fumbled your words and felt the silent judgment of your colleagues. It was that time you put your heart into a project or a relationship and it was publicly rejected or mocked. It was that moment you failed an exam, lost a job, or made a mistake that everyone seemed to see. It was the time you stood up for yourself and were told you were being too much. Or the time you were vulnerable and were told you were too sensitive. That was your 60 Minutes moment. And in that moment, you made a decision, maybe subconsciously. You decided that the version of you that experienced that humiliation was the real you. The flawed, the fragile, the not enough you. So, you started building a fortress. Just like Alex did with his binders of data. You built a fortress of people-pleasing. Of playing small. Of not raising your hand. Of staying in the comfortable relationship. Of sticking with the safe job. You built walls of self-deprecating humor to beat others to the punch. You crafted a persona that was designed for one thing and one thing only, to never, ever feel that feeling of public explosion again. But I am here today, looking right into your eyes through this camera, to tell you something. That fortress you built is your prison. The persona you created to protect you is suffocating the real you. The real you is the one that spoke up before you were shut down. The one that dreamed before you were told to be realistic. The real you is the geologist who knows the data, who knows your own worth, your own capability, your own strength. Your moment of explosion, your 60 minutes interview, was not the end of your story. It was the necessary demolition of everything you were not. It cleared the ground. And now, on that scorched earth, you have a choice. You can look at the rubble and see only destruction. Or you can look at it and see, for the very first time, a blank slate. A foundation, the one that was always there, underneath the weak structures you and other people had built. This is the crossing. This is the moment you stop living in the reality of who you were in that humiliating moment, and you start crossing into the reality of who you were always meant to be. How do you do it? First, you must do what Alex did. You must reclaim your truth. In that silent, broken moment, he didn't find a new, clever argument. He found his own truth. The one he had lived. The one he had earned through sweat and failure. What is your unshakable truth? Not the one your parents told you, not the one your boss expects from you, not the one social media is screaming at you. What is the core, fundamental truth about you that no failure, no criticism, no humiliation can ever change? Maybe it's, I am a learner. Maybe it's, I am resilient. Maybe it's, I am creative. Maybe it's, I am kind. Find that. Write it down. That is your bedrock. Second, you must speak from that truth, not to your critic. When Alex started speaking again, he didn't look at Vance. He looked at the camera. He spoke to the people who needed to hear the real story. Stop having the arguments in your head with your critics, the person who rejected you, the boss who overlooked you, the parent who doubted you. They are not the audience for your new reality. You are, and the people who are on the same journey as you. Speak your truth to them. Speak it in your actions. Speak it in the goals you set. Speak it in the boundaries you draw. Stop trying to convince your detractors and start building your legacy. Third, and this is the most important part, you must embrace the mess. Alex's power came when he admitted the mess. The anomalies, the failures, he didn't hide from them, he used them as his source of strength. Your failures, your embarrassments, your anomalies, they are not your shame. They are your credentials. They are the proof that you have been in the arena, that you have tried, that you have fought. The perfect, curated lives you see online are the real fraud. They are the prepared binders that haven't been tested. You have been tested. You have been through the fire. And you are still here. That is your power. Your 60 minutes moment, the one you thought defined your failure, was actually your initiation. It was the universe's brutal, unforgiving, but ultimately perfect way of stripping away everything you didn't need, so you could finally see what was essential. The you that you were meant to be is not some future, perfected, flawless version. It is the you that is right here, right now, with all the scars, all the lessons, all the resilience that your explosions have given you. It is the you that can look at a past failure and say, that is not the whole story. That was a chapter, and I am the author. The crossing of realities is not a long, arduous journey to a distant land. It is a simple, profound, and terrifying decision. It is the decision to stop performing the part of the person who had that horrible thing happen to them, and to start being the person who was transformed by it. It is the decision to look at your reflection and finally see not the victim of the explosion, but the phoenix that rose from the ashes. Your new reality is waiting for you. It has been waiting this whole time. It's on the other side of that line you're afraid to cross. The line between who you've been and who you are capable of being. The line between the reality you inherited and the reality you will create. So, take a deep breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet. The solid ground of your own unshakable truth. And take the first step. Cross.